What is going on, everybody? What is going on? Happy Sunday. Hope you all have had a great Sunday, day of relaxation. Getting ready to get started, get back at it for another work week. Going into it, hoping to build some momentum, get accomplished whatever you need to get accomplished. That's what it is, man. That's what it is. Let's go and get it. We are now 11 days away from the NFL draft. We are 11 days away from the 2024 NFL draft, starting on April 25th, Thursday, April 25th at, I want to say 8 p.m. Let me verify that. Let's see. Yeah, 8 p.m. I knew it's typically, I was maybe thinking 7, maybe they changed it, but I know in years past it has started at 8. Looks like that's going to stay the same this year. So the draft will get underway at 8 p.m. And then obviously we have day 2 and day 3. I don't know. I have not decided if I'm going to go live for draft night or not. I may, but that's just, going to depend on, how some things fall. I will definitely be around though, talking about how I feel, about whatever the Atlanta Falcons do, with their draft picks, be that the number 8 pick or just in general. The Falcons, as it stands right now, have 4 picks in the top 80. I want to say have about 7 or 8 picks in total. I will have to check that. Obviously, that is subject to change, considering, maybe some trades happen, maybe some stuff goes down. But where I think it stands right now, I want to say the Falcons have 8 draft picks as it currently stands, 7 or 8. Anyways, man, it is definitely an exciting time, around these streets to be an Atlanta Falcons fan as we really do lock in on the NFL draft. But really, obviously, the big question is the number 8 pick. This is the Falcons' 3rd year picking at number 8. We do not like the number 8 pick. We do not want to be picking at the number 8 pick, or at least slotted to originally pick there. It's kind of, where we've been stuck these past few years. But when you look at the situation the past few years, obviously it was completely different than where the Falcons stand right now. It was a different head coach, and it was a different philosophy. And, to be honest, there were definitely a lot of questions about that philosophy when we saw what happened on the field. But regardless, there was, some differences, as far as, the coaching staff went. Obviously, Raheem Morris is now the head coach, who is more of a defensive-minded guy, even though Raheem, you got to point out, Raheem knows offense. Raheem has coached on the offensive side of the ball, has been a passing game coordinator, but his specialty is more of defense, even though he's not really calling either sides of the ball. He's taking the CEO approach, which is, really how it should be done. Let, Zach Robinson and Jimmy Lake, do what they need to do, with their respective sides of the ball. But with that being said, that has raised a question, because this is a different spot that the Falcons are in than we were the past few years. In 2022, we were really in a spot after we had just traded Matt Ryan, where there was a big question of, maybe what we should have done. Maybe, do we go defense? We ended up taking Drake London. We needed a wide receiver at that point, so we took Drake London. And so far, I would say that's turned out, to be pretty good. Terry Fontenot's first year here with Arthur Smith, we took Kyle Pitts at number 4, who was at the time thought to be this generational prospect. Now here we are a few years later, and this is really a prove-it year for Kyle Pitts. Last year, number 8 pick, we filled out a lot of the holes on defense, but still maybe do we want to get that one more guy that can really take this defense over the edge, or are we going to once again go best player available? We pick Bijan Robinson. But it really does feel like this year is a different situation because you have the quarterback, you have the, skill set players, you have the Bijan Robinsons now, you have the Drake Londons, you have the Kyle Pitts in a prove-it year. You went and picked up Darnell Mooney. You traded for Rondale Moore. Now you can definitely still make the argument this team could use one more wide receiver. You could. But to be completely honest, this is a very deep wide receiver class. You can find a productive wide receiver in day 2 or even day 3. And considering Zach Robinson's background in LA and what they did with someone named Puka Nacua last year, was a 5th-round pick and turned into a superstar, I think you got to trust Zach Robinson, with a receiver. You do pick him in round 5. Let's say, for instance, like they did Puka Nacua, you could always develop him into something plausible. But overall, I get the argument you need depth at wide receiver. However, I would probably say, as far as wide receiver goes, I would say we might be good at it. I could see there being a scenario where we don't take a wide receiver in the draft. Now, I do think it would not hurt to do so. But when you consider Drake London, you consider Darnell Mooney, you consider what Rondale Moore maybe could be, and then you go and you consider we have Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, and we have Kyle Pitts as well. We got some dudes here. We are not lacking in playmakers for Kirk Cousins. But the defensive side of the ball has definitely, with the exception of, you can say last year, because last year the Falcons did have a good defense. There have been many points on the defense side of the ball that for years the Falcons have lacked. And you can also look at some potential new holes that we have seen open up. The Falcons could use another corner. We could use a safety. But that one that has really always, been there for what feels like forever now, since John Abraham left, and we took in some guys. We took in a Vic Beasley, and maybe think this is the guy, that can be that next premier edge rusher. Vic had one amazing year, and then we, there were many things that contributed to, why Vic Beasley didn't turn out to be a long-term success. Number one, he really wasn't used right. Number two, he just didn't have the heart for ball. And we've taken other swings too. We took one at Attack McKinley, and that's one I would love to forget. But the Falcons do find themselves in a situation this year where you're in a spot where you're sitting at number 8, and you have 3 potential guys that have been widely, credited to be, potential premier edge rushers, or no doubt the top 3 edge rushers in this class that you've been linked to. That's been Latu, Jared Verse, and Dallas Turner. And a lot of people have said the Atlanta Falcons will take Dallas Turner. And listen, I'm a big Dallas Turner guy. And if I were to have my pick, I would agree. I would say you go and you pick Dallas Turner. Here's the thing with that. Regardless, and this could be for anything. This could be if you pick a wide receiver. This could be if you pick a corner. This could be if you pick an edge rusher. You want that first round pick to hit. You want that pick to hit. However, it's never a certainty, because you might turn on tape and just see, this behemoth at the college level. You might see, this potential superstar in the making. That if he can carry this over, man, he can be a valuable asset for our team. But that just isn't all that tells it. Guys, adapt differently to the pro level. So that is the thing to keep in mind regardless when you're looking at this. However, as I say, this is very much, a different scenario than these past few years, whereas you're not lacking in offensive playmakers, but you've been lacking in an edge rusher for well over a decade. You could also use another cornerback to go alongside A.J. Terrell, who is coming up on a contract year, playing on that fifth-year option, and you don't know if he's going to be back. You really don't. I'd love to have A.J. back. You don't know if A.J.'s going to be back. You don't know how much they're actually willing to pay an A.J. Terrell to stay here in Atlanta. So there's many things that when you look at this draft and how the Falcons are thinking about it, that is going to influence what you do at that number 8 pick. And what you do at that number 8 pick then influences what you do with your second round pick, your 2 third-round picks, and even in day 3. But you want that first-round pick to hit. Now, another, potential scenario that could play in is this. And we need to realize that the Falcons went and got Kirk Cousins for many reasons. Number one, they're in a win-now mode. The Falcons, want to win now. Arthur Blank, it does not want to wait any longer because at the end of the day, Arthur Blank don't know how long he has left on this planet that we call Earth. He has no idea how much longer he has left here. However, he went and he broke out his checkbook and he signed that check to Kirk Cousins to come here, all that guaranteed money, because you want to win now. You also didn't want to be in a position where you were trying to, chase or trade up to, get a quarterback. And that's what we see some teams picking a few spots after us in that situation. The Minnesota Vikings, who oddly enough we took Kirk Cousins from, is trying to move up to get J.J. McCarthy, who we all assume is going to be the 4th quarterback on the board. And pretty much I think you can say that Caleb Williams to Chicago is a lock. I think Washington and New England. Now, anything could happen, but those are 2 teams that they're pointing to taking quarterbacks. It looks like that's the direction. Washington, I would probably say, is, in the Jaden Daniels boat, whereas that leaves New England in the Drake May boat. Now, maybe New England pulls a swerve. Maybe they, take J.J. McCarthy. I did see he's going to visit with them on tomorrow. Maybe they take Marvin Harrison Jr. They do have Jacoby Brissett, and they say, you know what, which, by the way, I do think we need to point out that this year's quarterback draft class and next year's quarterback draft class, first of all, we don't have enough information to really make out what it clearly is going to look like. You got names like Shedeur Sanders, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, I think a Drew Aller from Penn State. But this quarterback draft class now, you're not passing up on that guy. So we assume, Caleb Williams, Jane Daniels, Drake May, that's 1, 2, 3. And then that leaves the Arizona Cardinals on the board at the 4th pick, who could desperately use a wide receiver like Marvin Harrison Jr. Do they go and do they, take him? Or do they hear out an offer from a team like Minnesota or Denver, or maybe even another team that wants to get up in the draft and get a J.J. McCarthy, for instance? So at the end of the day, there's a lot to think about with that. However, if let's say Arizona decides, you know what, we're going to take Marvin Harrison here. He's a generational. It's in the bloodline. He's the perfect weapon for Kyler Murray. Then the Chargers go out and decide we'll take wide receiver from LSU, Malik Neighbors. The Giants, then, I think, that's the team that I think everyone wants to jump up to, get ahead of, because they could take a quarterback. However, man, if I'm being honest, I know they can't be, too happy with Daniel Jones. I'm sure in some crazy scenario, if somehow, which it won't happen, Caleb Williams fell into their lap, yeah, they take him. If Jaden Daniels fell in their lap, yeah, they take him. Maybe Drake May falls in their lap. Yeah, they would take him. I just don't see that happening. And J.J. McCarthy can definitely be a good NFL quarterback, but it also depends on the situation you're going into. Now, a lot of teams aren't necessarily thinking about that. Every team thinks, that their situation is the best they can possibly be. That's just the thinking. Then maybe they could, but also they have Daniel Jones. They have Drew Lock. They're still paying Daniel Jones for this year. To me, man, I could see the Giants, maybe they take an offensive tackle. Maybe they take Rome Odunze, wide receiver from Washington. Maybe they trade back. You don't know. Another thing to, and then the Tennessee Titans at number 7. I would probably say Tennessee slated to take an offensive line. So there is a scenario where the Falcons are sitting at number 8 and J.J. McCarthy is on the board. And you have the Vikings calling. You have the Denver Broncos calling. Then okay, you have a tough decision to make. Are you going to, move back with these teams? And you pick up the Vikings have 2 first-round picks, 11 and 23. So maybe, you could gain another first-round pick out of that. You don't know. Denver. We've heard Denver is so desperate to move up, they could include Patrick Surtain in a deal. Now, let me go ahead and say, if you're building a fantasy team, sure. Patrick Surtain is, maybe the best corner in football. However, you're conflicted on whether you're going to pay A.J. Terrell or not. Now you're going to add Patrick Surtain into it. Now, granted, Patrick Surtain, he still has another year on that contract versus A.J. Terrell, as he was taken a year later. But still, you got to make a long-term decision on who you're going to pay. And Surtain is going to cost more, but, you would, that puts you in a very tough spot. So I don't see that happening. That's something, I've heard. I don't know how true it is because you got to take everything with a grain of salt here. But that really then poses a question. And maybe it's not even. Maybe, someone's traded for J.J. McCarthy. Maybe no one is calling the Falcons, for number 8, concerning, maybe the Vikings or the Broncos. Who knows? Still, there could be a team calling, wanting to move up to, say if a Rome Odunze is on the board, get him. If maybe a team wants to trade up and get a guy like Brock Bowers, go and get him. You want to trade up and maybe get one of the tackles available. You go and get an offensive tackle, a cornerstone for your franchise, for the next decade plus. So this is really what I say. This is a different situation because it does feel like for the first time in a while, it is a possibility the Falcons could actually trade back. However, as I do say, I think we got to keep in mind that, number one, these, everything that we talk about here, you have to keep in mind, that we do not know what Terry Fontenot knows. Terry Fontenot knows stuff we just don't. And Raheem Morris knows stuff that we just don't. These 31, 32 NFL GMs, these 32 NFL head coaches, they know things that we don't. These scouts, they've discovered things about these prospects we don't know. They have studied up on them because they have the resources to that we don't. So we got to keep that in mind. But then that does pose the question, do you trade back or do you stay pat? And I definitely would think an offer, it has to be the right offer. You have to, get the right quantity of picks, both maybe this year and some future picks as well, to actually pull that trigger on potentially moving back in the NFL draft. But I do want to get into some mock drafts here. I am going to use PFF here. Now, obviously, I don't pay for PFF because I really only utilize these simulators one time a year. Just so happens this is the time of year. So, no, I will not be. I don't even think you can do any trades with this. You know, you can only do 3 rounds. You know, I mean, as you see, I can, you know, try to do 7. I'm not paying for it. But anyways, and see, you can't even do trades on this. Well, what a motherfucker. But hey, it's a cheap motherfucker. That's at the end of the day what the hell this is. Anyways, man, let's start this thing out. So, as you see, yeah, you talk about anything can happen. You don't, because here's the thing we need to keep in mind. There is always the one prospect that everybody expects to go in the first round, like Will Levis last year. Oh, he'll make it out the first round. They don't. They end up, you know, being there in the second round. Even maybe, you know, they end up falling for some odd reason. Maybe an interview didn't go right. Maybe there's, you know, they didn't do well at the pro day or the combine. They rubbed teams the wrong way. There's something about them that, you know, just turn teams off. But that happens with these prospects. However, you know, there's also the flip side of it where there's, you know, a guy that, and this doesn't necessarily apply for the top 10, but it applies for maybe the later first round. A guy maybe we didn't see go until maybe the late second, third round, going, you know, in the mid-20s of the first round. That's just the bottom line. You know, teams might like prospects a lot more than the public does, and even other teams do. So we have to keep that in mind. But however you do look at this, Caleb Williams goes number 1 to Chicago. I think that is a given at this point. Drake May goes number 2 to New England. It could definitely happen. J.J. McCarthy, or, you know, Drake May goes to Washington. Could definitely happen. J.J. McCarthy goes to New England. Now, that's one I don't see happening. But listen, think about J.J. McCarthy, man. I'm sure a lot of these NFL scouts really like how the boy looks, like how, you know, he, you know, works as a quarterback. You know, there's a lot of things that screams J.J. McCarthy, you know, as, you know, being very beloved by some of these NFL scouts and head coaches and GMs. Marvin Harrison goes to Arizona. Rome Odunze goes to the Chargers. Jaden Daniels goes to the Giants. And Dallas Turner goes to Tennessee. Now, that to me really does kind of mess this up here. Really could kind of mess this up. However, because I think, you know, not a lot of people are expecting that Dallas Turner goes to Tennessee. A lot of people are expecting them to take an O-lineman. So, yeah, that can definitely, you know, mess some things up here. When you look at how we expect this to ultimately go. But you got to keep in mind, man, anything can happen. And they got many different scenarios lined up. So, looking at some of the teams potentially available in, you know, this pick, you can say fuck you to them. The Colts, the Packers, the Texans. Now, Indianapolis is definitely interesting. That's an interesting spot. I don't know if I'd be willing to go far back with Green Bay, even though you would pick up a shit ton of capital. Man, you know, just I don't even think you can probably do a trade here. But let me just see, you know, what this how this would go. So you pick up 8, you pick up 15 and 46. That's a 5th round pick. And maybe that's not going to be accepted. You do a 3rd round pick there. Can obviously offer the trade. But that has a 75% chance of, you know, being accepted. So maybe, anything can happen, but we can't do any trades here, so we do have to look at it with that at that terms. Malik Neighbors is on the board. Now, as we talk about Terry Fontenot, one of the things we need to keep in mind here is that Terry Fontenot has been in this situation in the past where a lot of people have thought he should trade down, he should take a defensive guy. He takes a wide receiver, he takes a running back. It's in Terry Fontenot's DNA, and he just said this the other day as well. We're not going to reach. We know we need an edge rusher, but we're not going to reach. We're going to take who we see as the best player available. And when you look at it, man, Malik Neighbors is there, a Joe Alt is there, and that could be a possibility because you do have to start thinking about life after Jake Matthews, as well as Caleb McGarry potentially. I don't know if that's really a long-term answer. You do have Latu there. You do have Terry and Arnold there. You do have Jared Verse there. But I don't see Terry and Arnold at 8 because I do think that's a reach. And I don't see Terry Fontenot making that move. Latu. Now, here's something we need to keep in mind with these Washington, UCLA, a guy like Latu, who played at Washington. Jimmy Lake was the head coach there. The connection is there between those two. And the one thing about the NFL, it's a connections league. If you know one guy, you get one guy's number, you start talking. That's how deals are made in the NFL. It's about who you know. It's about the connections that you have. So that's definitely possible. However, I think with Dallas Turner gone, I think you got to look at this from the perspective of that we can't trade. You almost have to take, a guy like maybe Malik Neighbors or Joe Alt. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to, you use Terry Fontenot's best player available philosophy. This isn't what I particularly do, but what you're dealt with is what you're dealt. Now it's definitely maybe possible they do take a Latu here today, even if Dallas Turner is still on the board. We don't know how they value that board. I'm going to go ahead and do it, even though I really, kind of don't want to. But go ahead and do it. I am going to run another one after this, on the site on the Pro Football Network site I do use. So now here we are at 43, and man, Lat McConkey's on the board. You have Braden Fisk on the board from Florida State. Michael Penix on the board. So you got some guys here on the board, that could potentially be in play for you. TJ Tampa. This is a guy that, I could definitely see the Falcons picking up here. I definitely think that's the type of guy that, Raheem Morris and Jimmy Lake would definitely like to coach. Taking a look at, other guys here on the board. Braylon Trice, another Washington guy. Max Melton, that's another guy that he really fits, that Raheem Morris. Marshawn Nealon, this is a guy that we have seen, kind of jump up those boards recently. Taking a look at him. And as we see, and this is almost always, the case, typically Terry, if he does go offense in the first, and I know he picked Matthew Bergeron in the second round last year, typically he'll almost always go defense. 2021, he went with Richie Grant. 2022, he went with Arnold Ebiketie and Troy Anderson. So taking a look at some of the guys we do have here, Braden Fisk could be, a potential option. However, as I more and more think about it, especially if, let's say, we do decide to go that best player available route at 8 and we take in Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze, which it would absolutely make this offense unstoppable. No question about that. And we don't have Arthur Smith here anymore. We got a guy who actually knows what he's doing with his players. Um, but you have a TJ Tampa on the board, who I'm really intrigued by. You have a Jonah Ellis on the board, Caden Ellis's younger brother, who, man, he can be a dog. Marshawn Nealon, I think you like what you could get from him. But, man, they love their DBs. I'm going to go ahead and say you pick TJ Tampa here in this spot. So, yeah. Let's see. So now we're in the third round. We have 2 picks left here. Man, let's see. Who do we have here? Who do we have here to potentially take? Well, you definitely, I think, got to look at these edge rushers at this point. Now, this guy, Muhammad Kamara, this is another one of those guys I think you're talking about. He could definitely be something. Austin Booker, this is a guy you look at. These are guys that can fit into that mold that they're looking for. Especially when you do look at a guy like a Muhammad Kamara. You have to keep in mind, they're going to look to you. They're using their edge rushers as outside linebackers, guys that can really be versatile. So all in all, I think I'm gonna go ahead, pick Muhammad Kamara there. And then you look at, your second, third round pick. And let's see, you definitely got some options here. Maybe is this where you go and you address offensive tackle? Maybe you go and you look back once again to the defensive side of the ball. And a guy like Dwayne Carter that I definitely think, could fit this defense. Maybe you do, that, because you got to also start thinking about, and man, I hate saying this, a potential replacement for Grady. And that could definitely maybe be a guy like Dwayne Carter. But obviously this just, a rough draft. And probably, not how, I would, probably prefer the draft to go, but you do have to prepare for anything. So Malik Neighbors and TJ Tampa, we got an A and A+. We got an F for Muhammad Kamara, and then a D+ for Dwayne Carter. So overall, we got a B+. All right. So as I really say, I'm not paying for PFF. I would have absolutely traded back there. But yeah, you got to do what you got to do. You got to be prepared for anything, on draft night. You don't know how the board's going to fall. So I'm going to do one more mock draft here and then going to get out of here for the night. Don't want to keep everyone too long. Just going to do one more little mock draft here. See how this thing falls, man. Caleb Williams, number 1. Drake May, number 2. Jay Nails, 3. Morgan Harrison, 4. Malik Nate. Let's say that's pretty reasonable. Let's say, I could maybe definitely. This is an offer that I think you look at and you can definitely maybe say this offer too. Do you pick up? This is something we got to think about, guys. We have, now we have to give up one of our thirds. We get that first round next year, though, and you can say all you want. There's a bidding war to go and get J.J. McCarthy. You're looking at it. Minnesota's offering you a first-round pick, but Dallas Turner's right there on the board. And, man, it's a tough one. You also have the Raiders. They'll give you their first and their second. There's a possibility Dallas Turner is still here. If you trade back with the Raiders, don't know, but you got to give up a third here. I think I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to go ahead, accept this trade. And so Dallas Turner is still on the board. Let's go ahead and reject that. project that. Chicago takes lot 2. Now, I think lot 2 could definitely fall because of all the, injury concerns with his neck. I could also potentially maybe see, you don't know how all of this is going to turn out. That's why I say you don't know how but Dallas Turner is here. Lot 2's off the board. You know where I'm going. You know where I'm going here. See, Tampa traded up, got Jared Verse. Broncos trade back up and get wide receiver Brian Thomas. Michael Penix to the Lions. That would definitely be some funky stuff, to say the least. All right. So taking a look here, we got 2 trade offers. I'm really not feeling this one from Denver. I ain't gonna lie, the first round pick's definitely intriguing. We already picked up one. So we've gotten Dallas Turner, and we have a Johnny Newton here on the board. Now, Johnny Newton is definitely a prospect. I think, he definitely is intriguing. But as I say, I think maybe you look at wide receiver here. Maybe you look at offensive tackle here. You look at defense here. And I really feel like, I'm going to go ahead and say, I really feel like they probably, are going to definitely, you're going to have to prioritize defense here in this draft. In those first 2 rounds, they're going to take a corner. And that's honestly how I see it playing out. I do think there is a different philosophy you're going into with this year. And I think it's you're prioritizing edge rushers and you're prioritizing DBs. And man, I know I took him in the other mock draft. Max Melton is there. TJ Tampa, that I definitely think that could definitely be a fit. When you take a look at it. And Max Melton's another guy, too, that could definitely, you talk about, those are 2 guys I think available there in that second round. You could definitely be looking at as they're Raheem Morris guys. They can definitely fit that defense. But also, I think it's just the reality of, I think I like Tampa a little better overall than Max Melton. So here in the third now, and you have a decision to make. Do you maybe finally go to the offensive side of the ball? Remember, you have another 3rd round pick here. One name I have really seen that I really have not done much, research on, but I have seen attached a little bit to the Atlanta Falcons is this name right here, wide receiver Ricky Pearsall from Florida. And when you look at it, to me, as I say, I think wide receiver. Now, Terry Fontenot, we know he loves best player available. I honestly feel like, especially if a Dallas Turner is there, you're going to really want to, address that defense early, and then maybe you get later in the draft, you can take a wide receiver. You do have a Braden Fisk here on the board, which Braden Fisk is one of those guys that maybe you're potentially talking about as another Grady Jarrett replacement. You got to think, man, this is a spot right here. I really think you start thinking about your potential replacement for Grady Jarrett. And obviously, it pains me to say that, but man, it's just where you're at. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Braden Fisk here. So let's see, as the board continues to fall, we did trade that 79th pick. That's my bad. We did trade that pick to get the first next year from Minnesota. So that definitely kind of, pain we don't have that, but, still that the future pick next year, if they do offer that up, you definitely have to consider taking that because, that's a first round pick, man, and that could be a high one. So our first 3 picks, we went edge rusher, corner, and D lineman. It feels like here you almost kind of have to go offense here, day 3. And there's definitely some guys on the board. One of those guys that, I've really been looking at, well, there's a few here. First of all, Luke McCaffrey, Christian's younger brother. We know what the McCaffrey bloodline's all about. We know what's in their DNA. It's playing football. Javon Baker, wide receiver from UCF, could definitely be someone you look at. And then Jacob Cowan. This is, a guy to bring in that can be, competition in the slot for Rondell Moore. And we know that LA and Zach Robinson, they love their guys from the slot. That's one of the things that they really do like. When you definitely, so you have to look at a lot of those things. So all in all here, man, I'm probably going to go ahead. I'm going to take Jacob Cowan here with this pick, wide receiver out of Arizona. Obviously, last time we took a wide receiver out of Arizona, Frank Darby, did not turn out the best. But same time, man, you got to realize this is a different coaching staff. See, I want to say we have, let me go ahead and check this. We have, so we have 3 more picks left. So all in all, I do believe that would mean the Falcons have 8 picks heading into the draft as of right now. So taking a look at this 5th round, man, and where we stand, definitely at this point, man, you still obviously you want to look for those diamonds in the rough, but you're also at this point you're really looking to build that depth. Now, Jonah Ellis here, and I really don't see Jonah lasting to the 5th round. Just because he's here, man, I'm gonna go ahead and take him. Just because he's not gonna last to the 5th round. Just because he's here, man. Luke going to Denver, man. That would definitely be an interesting dynamic. Obviously, Ed McCaffrey played his days back in Denver, so Luke going there as well. As we come up on these final 2 picks here of this draft, and then, as I say, this is probably all for tonight, and then I'm going to get out of here. I will be back next Sunday, and then probably next week sometime, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm going to do an extensive show, maybe try to get some people on where we're really going to give our final thoughts as we will then pretty much be on the eve of draft night. Taking a look at, I think you do want to add some depth here at tight end. And I think, a guy like Dalian Halker, you definitely can be a blocking guy. Can also, because ultimately you do have to think, even though Kyle, you're really not going to have the need, but to really carry 2 tight ends on the roster, that they're going to want competition between Charlie Warner and probably another tight end to have that spot. Then taking a look here, man, obviously maybe you look at linebacker, and an Edfune Fashu. I don't even know how to say that name, but guy that played, and I'm telling y'all, man, the Washington connection, these guys, they play for Washington, that Jim Lake is familiar with. That's going to have an effect on really, maybe some of these picks that you do see. Um, so as we get ready to round out this mock draft here. All right, so taking a final look at this mock draft, we only picked one offensive guy. Well, two, but as I say, I think this is going to be a very heavy defensive draft, and I think that's how you really have to look at it. We take Dallas Turner, we trade back with the Vikings, we give them pick 8 and pick 79 for the 11th pick and a 2025 first-round pick. They take J.J. McCarthy, we take Dallas Turner, he was still there at 11, T.J. Tampa at 43, Braden Fisk at 74, Jacob Cowan, wide receiver out of Arizona at 109, Jonah Ellis at 143. He fell right into our lap. Dallin Halker from tight end from Colorado State at 187. And then Edifan Ulo-Fashao at 197. So, yeah, that's and as I say, we don't know how this, entire thing is going to turn out. But got to be prepared for anything, man. You don't know. You really don't. And when you look at it, I definitely think the strategy should be you listen to the offer, and if it's on offer, you almost can't resist. Like at the end of the day, even though I had to give the 3rd round pick, it's going to be hard to resist an offer, of getting a 1st round pick next year. It's going to be hard to resist that type of offer. And then also when you take a look at it, you want to build up that defense because you build up this offense, but listen, you haven't re-signed a Bud Dupree. You don't know what's going on with Calais Campbell. And obviously these are DB specialists. They're gonna they're going to draft a corner with one of those first few picks. I can almost say that is a certainty. That's really where I think you got to consider, when putting together these mock drafts. Anyways, man, with that being said, I will see you guys back next Sunday with, more mock draft talk, more draft talk, as we are closing in now 11 days until the NFL draft. Certainly, is one to, look out for as one as the anticipation grows, the excitement builds, man. It's definitely a good time, as we inch closer to the draft. But anyways, man, I will see you all in the next one.